My name's Leslie Evans. I'm Director General for Learning and Justice, and it's my pleasure to welcome you back from lunch for what is traditionally known as the graveyard shift. It says in my briefing notes, always a difficult slot, but we'll ignore that. It's my role to enthuse and energise you following what I think has been a stimulating morning and I'm sure a delicious lunch. We've got workshops ahead of us this afternoon. That's the time for you to start to get to grips with all that you've been hearing and all that you want to contribute to the debate on the Early Years Collaborative. I'm absolutely delighted to be here, and I suppose the reason why, the clue is in my title, Director General for Learning and Justice. If we get the early years right, and if the collaborative enables us to do that consistently and in a suitably ambitious way, then we'll be welcoming into school children who are indeed ready to learn, who have the capacity and the empathy to form strong social bonds with suitable resilience, behaviours and sensitivity already plugged in. Equally, if we get the early years right, we'll be looking at potentially a smaller prison estate, targeting our interventions earlier and much more precisely in the justice system, and making completely different calls on that system and indeed different level of call on the justice budget. So you may have gathered from those comments that I am a fan of the early years and indeed the early years collaborative that we're going to be forming and discussing today. And I look forward to hearing in some of the workshops that you've got this afternoon. I shall sit in on the back of some of them. Meantime, we all know the absolutely crucial role of local government and indeed community planning partnerships to the investment in the early years and to the success of the collaborative that we've got under discussion today. This isn't easy. I think we've all worked that one out. It's not just about a change of mindset. You're all very familiar with the professional challenges that early years presents anyway. This is more about making sure that we make the step change at the right time and in the right way. And this is just, we're on baby steps here, to use the right kind of phrase, I think. This is the starter. But having said that, I think people are getting to grips with some of those difficult issues. You're the experts now because you've already started to move up that learning curve. And I hope that you found out enough this afternoon to understand, yes, it's a challenge, but it's a step change worth making and one we really need to make. If you're in any doubt about it, I would go back to what I said earlier on about my role as being responsible for education and justice in Scotland. Compared to the general population, the people in our prisons are 13 times more likely to have been in care as a child, and they're 10 times more likely to have been a regular truant from school or excluded. 8 out of 10 of the prison population have the writing skills of an 11-year-old, and 7 out of 10 of the prison population have suffered at least 2 mental disorders. Now, I could go on. There's lots more data like that. Some of you will be painfully aware of it. If there was ever a reminder that we really need to get to grips with early years and to really give it the profile and the investment it deserves, and we know the evidence tells us makes a difference, now's the time. I'm just going to mention 2 things before we depart. One thing I'll mention, one thing I'll show you. The first thing is what's next and what comes out of today. From the Scottish Government's point of view and from Shirley Lang and her team, to which I think great thanks are due for such a useful and well-organised event. But the first thing that we'll be doing is taking the feedback from the sessions today, the question and answer sessions, but particularly the workshops. And we'll be using those to ponder what we do next, but also redefine, or refine the 3 work streams which have been reflected in the workshops today. And we'll be getting back in touch with you in November about what the next steps are, but I think you've already heard that there's likely to be a learning session in January. What we ask of you is that you go back and prepare for collaboration. Or at least you go back and think about, are you up for it? And I think that's what Derek Feely's question was to you earlier on. Are you up for this? Because we think we are, and we really would like you to be too. So if you are up for it, who are the teams that you need to engage with when you go back to the ranch? And what are perhaps the challenges that are particularly useful for you to start thinking about? What would collaboration look like for you? What would be the small but significant changes that you might want to introduce on an individual basis even, in order to start thinking about the collaborative as a live challenge? Before you disperse, I just want to share with you a very short DVD which we think gives you an overview of, or a taster of the challenge that we think we have in front of us, and particularly how we think we'll be able to respond to that challenge.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes, and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out, you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut, and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers, because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over-glorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
Many people have described the Scottish Government as a lone nut in its time. But what we're really interested in is the first followers, and I think we have found many of them in this room today. Have a safe journey back. Thank you. Goodbye.